Hello, everyone. Happy Shochu'sday. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
good evening, good night.
Yeah. And whatever is in your glass right now, this is only coffee. But if you've got something more exciting, then please drop it in the chat and we can start as always. Good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a bit.
Yeah, I know. You had a little break. I've been taking a break. I kind of forgot we had this and until I guess I remembered because I did have an alarm set, but because I've turned off my alarm this week, it's been just a complete dis disconnect, shutting off, shutting out,
We definitely
relaxing.
need that every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unplug.
This is probably the longest I've been able to do that in a couple of years, I'm guessing. It's been nonstop. Just go,
Yeah.
go, 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 go. Even when I take a break from one thing, I've got something else to do.
Of course.
So, yeah,
Six
yeah.
other
So it's
things to do.
nice. Exactly. They just actually opened a Van Gogh exhibit here in Fukuoka,
I saw that.
um, which I'm excited about, and tried to go on Monday, but that's when the museum's closed.
Of
So
course.
I went to Starbucks instead. Um,
Consolation
yeah, but
prize. How's the
and
art at
then
Starbucks?
yeah, the latte art is
The latte art
fantastic. Yeah.
to die
In
for.
Japan, they do it right at Starbucks. I don't go to Starbucks in the States, but I'm there relatively often here in Japan. They do a decent coffee.
Starbucks in the States can be infuriating once you get used to Starbucks in Japan.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, wait,
Doesn't
how
it
are
kind
these the
of
same company?
right, right? But I mean, if you think about almost anything that's transplanted from the States to Japan, that holds true. Seven
Yeah,
Eleven,
yeah,
KFC, like even McDonald's
true.
is pretty great here. Sorry, everybody,
Yeah,
we're probably
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're
yeah,
wrong. Yeah,
yeah.
but Starbucks is the one that I would be prone to patronizing in the U.S. And when I did
Mhm.
so in August and September, I was just like, "Oh my God, this is
Yeah,
embarrassing."
yep. I remember going into a Starbucks. This is well before the pandemic, I think, but I think it was on one of my first trips back after I had moved here. And I'd go to Starbucks here and there just when it was the most convenient coffee shop and I needed a caffeine jolt. And I went in, and I mean, I completely agree with you that it's just like not a, it's, you can't believe it's the same company. But this particular Starbucks, I think was like, I mean, they must have been in like, I can't remember the name of the school where the um, the recalcitrant students go, shall we say, right? The
Okay.
the, the kids who should probably be in juvenile detention or something. Like the condition of that shop, that particular store in Midtown Manhattan, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable the amount of trash that was just littered the floor, the tables. Like nobody had come out and wiped down the tables in what looked like days. There was
Yeah.
literally trash just around the waste bin. Nobody behind the counter seemed to care.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
how is this a Starbucks?
Yep.
You know? So,
Yeah. It's
and in
similar.
Japan,
Similar experiences when I was back
yeah,
this past summer.
yeah. And then the
Unbelievable.
Starbucks here, if at least there's one in Tenjin in the main shopping area here in Fukuoka, where if they're busy, they've got a staff member who's saving your seat for you. They assign the seats to customers that are coming and they're going to drink in the shop.
Yeah.
It's like a maitre d at a Starbucks if you think about it. So
Yeah.
it's just a different experience. Anyway, this isn't coffee chat, although sometimes I wish it were. Um,
Yeah. So
yeah,
good. It's good to hear that you got some unplugged time, and that's to continue. I
yep,
believe we're gonna try
that's
and
right.
stretch this past the new year, and
Oh yeah,
that's very much needed. But we are excited to talk about all things spirits related whenever we have a chance. And this is
of
week
course.
83
Wow.
of this journey. And the journey this week for me anyway included a trip to Okinawa. But before we get there, is there any booze news? Let's switch to booze news real quick. Booze in the
Booze in the
news.
news.
There was that event in Kagoshima this past weekend. The Shochu, was it the
Yeah.
Renaissance event or whatever they were calling it? They love to just
Shochu experience.
experience. Okay, it wasn't
Yeah.
Renaissance. That's a different Shochu. Shochu.
Oh, I was gonna say
event.
if there isn't a Shochu Renaissance event, we should make one.
Yeah, no, it does. It's an annual event in Tokyo.
Okay. Nice. That's not a bad name. But yeah, I was actually planning on going down to the Shochu experience in Kagoshima, and then two things happened to conspire against me. The first being that Fukuoka got their very first Omicron case the day before, and the second being that it was about 0 degrees out and snowing in Fukuoka. And I checked the weather, and it wasn't going to be any different in Kagoshima. And I don't mind some Oyuwari Shochu, but that's not going to keep my feet warm.
No, and your Oyuwari Shochu is not going to stay Oyuwari very long when it's freezing outside. I mean, unless you're using an industrial thermos or something with a heater in the bottom.
Right. Yeah. So I decided to continue my rest and relaxation here in Fukuoka rather than take the 3-hour round trip Shinkansen. Plus, probably went more than would have done 2.5 hours, I think, once you tack on the bus and the walk and the everything else to get out to the. It's a beautiful location. The Senganen is the traditional home of the Shimazu family. So it was sort of, I guess, kind of their. Was it their main residence or was it their summer house?
I think it was a summer house that at times was basically the main residence, but
yeah, and it was also a secret arms factory. That's kind of the amazing part of that story. Is the Shimazu actually, for those of you interested in Japanese history, a pretty important moment in the history of Japan, but unknown at the time, or at least people didn't know how big a moment it was the Satsuma England War. So there was actually a war between the Satsuma domain and England when a Satsuma samurai killed an English merchant outside of Tokyo, I guess in Yokohama, because that was the port that was open at the time. This is back in the late 1800s, or I guess middle to late, right? It was after 1854, before 1880s, and the samurai, the English merchant who apparently was drunk, can't imagine that, was rude. He didn't get out of the road for the Satsuma daimyo, for the Shimazu daimyo to walk, or to be, I don't know if he's carried or what was happening, or if they're on horseback, but he refused to yield to this nobleman. And one of his samurai from the Satsuma domain took issue with that and killed the guy.
Cut him in half, yeah.
Yep. And England wasn't happy, so England demanded retribution, and they just wanted money. All right, they're like, all right, just pay us off. We won't do anything. And the Shimazu family was like, no, that's all right, we're good. So the English sailed a gunship into Satsuma Bay or Kagoshima Bay, and leveled the city basically over the course of 2 or 3 days. And the Satsuma domain said, okay, we'll pay you, but let's make a treaty. Sell us weapons. Teach us how to make Western weapons. And the Satsuma domain, using that technology and those weapons, ended up overthrowing the shogun, along with, I guess what's modern day, I think it's Yamaguchi, was the other part of Japan. There are two domains that led the rebellion against the shogun and overthrew the feudal system. And all the samurai lost their jobs, so that was pretty short-sighted of them too.
They were like, "Oh, what was the end game? We didn't actually think that one through, did we? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to get a job. Damn it! I wonder if my mom will let me live in her basement for a few months while I get back on my feet. No man. All right. Well, cool. That was the most educational booze news we've ever had.
Yeah, I guess so.
And to bring it back to Sengaen, which is that beautiful place that used to be the summer home. Mm-hmm. It overlooks Sakurajima, so it really is picturesque, especially on clear days. And you can watch the volcano coughing smoke into the air at all hours of the day. And it seems like they had most or all of the active distilleries in Kagoshima participating, it seems. I question mark because I wasn't there either. But by all accounts, it was a lot of fun. 2-day event.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was how much different it was from last year when we both attended.
Yeah. Great question. I guess I have some local booze news as well.
Yeah.
In Fukuoka, is that last night I found a shochu bar I was unaware of, and pretty fantastic one. It's called sorry, gonna take me a minute. It's called Hitsujiga. Hitsujiga.
Hitsujiga.
And
So that's a sheep's house,
yep,
or
basically, yeah, yeah, the logo is a sheep. You know how sometimes you'll see like a pig as the logo for a pork restaurant or a chicken for a chicken restaurant. He has a sheep, and he doesn't serve any sheep.
yeah,
So for whatever reason, it's a sheep house, but all he serves is shochu, which is kind of the sheep. And actually, there was a
or
stuffed
maybe
sheep
you're
on
the
the
sheep.
stool next to me.
Maybe you guys are the sheep. You're the followers. You're following the shochu everywhere.
Yeah, that's fair. But there was actually a stuffed sheep on the stool next to me, so I guess it's part of the theme. Is each table is accompanied by a sheep. But he had the entire Rakuen set
Okay.
available in the bar, which we'll obviously get into later. And I was there with a mutual friend of ours and the owner of my favorite craft beer shop, and we had a
That's
couple
cool.
of drinks. Yeah, it was fun.
Nice.
But no, great spot in Fukuoka. More convenient than Sunkujira, which is a bit of a hike down to Hirao, and more relaxed. Sunkujira now is basically reservation only and really tiny place. And it's definitely worth the visit, obviously. But I think Hitsujiga is going to end up in my rotation.
Yeah. Sunkujira is absolutely wonderful, but it's also it's almost like kainse now, which is meaning members only. So and kainse is in that situation you need an introduction for the most part, otherwise they won't let you have a reservation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like one of the spots in Okinawa, right? That,
Yeah, true.
we like
Which I
to go
didn't
to.
get. I didn't have a chance to visit this time because I
Oh,
timed
really?
it wrong. Yeah, I thought I
Okay.
was going to be going there on my last evening, but plans moved us to a different part of town. But yeah, I was. Let me change. Hold on, banners. There needs to be an AI that understands which way we're going. The main event. Oh, I need to edit this damn thing. I always forget the main event. Crap. Okay, let's talk about Okinawa. Okay, and throw this one up. Okay. So yeah, it was just down for a few days. Wanted to be there for Christmas. Got to see a couple of friends and meet some people. And Okinawa is, it seems like, and it was the exact same way in March when we were there. It's always on the brink of another lockdown. It seems because, quite frankly, they've got two different sets of protocol for dealing with coronavirus. You have the Japanese response, and then you have the U.S. military response, and they are very, very different things. And so the military, unsurprisingly, happens to be hosting a lot of these new cases because they're not testing at the same stringent. They don't have to. The SOFA agreement allows them to basically do whatever they want. And what they don't want to do is cause lots of headaches with lots of testing, which is going to disrupt their ability to bring in new people. And the turnover is pretty quick. So, anyways, currently everything's moving, but it's kind of dead down there right now, kind of like it was at the beginning of March. And nobody's hours of operation are reliable on Google. It's shockingly off. Nobody's updating the stuff. You just like, well, you're supposed to be open. It's a Wednesday, and nope, you're not open. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I was constantly calling ahead to places, and the places that are open, all the places that you and I would want to hang out, are rammed even on a Monday because there's not. It's kind of slim pickings.
Right,
But
right.
visited some old friends and drank a lot of good stuff, and then importantly went and visited the guild, the Kumiai, and
cool.
had a face-to-face with them at their place, which is in kind of northern Naha, close to the water, and we had a good sit-down talk about about the future of Awamori in other markets and reactions to these drinks and how important cocktails are going to be and whether or not there are plays for kusu, meaning the age stuff and everything else. And so that was good. And then also went to see our friends at Chuko and talked with Oshiro Shacho a bit and tasted some more. He is, man, I really like that distillery because of how much experimentation they do. And they, they've got their mango yeast, and they got this yeast that expresses as banana, and they've been working to isolate these new things. I think they're really exciting. And we talked about, we just talked about sales in Japan, and of course, as you can imagine, sales are crap right now. They've never been strong for Awamori, and they're especially hard right now. And he said, he said, people's drinking style have changed. I was like, oh, what do you mean? He said, well, until 2019, if we went to an izakaya together, we'd buy a bottle, and we'd sit around pouring mizuwari for each other, and we'd stay there for hours until we killed a bottle or more or multiple bottles. And he said, and people aren't doing that anymore. Now
right.
People, because of the sensitivities and you can't bring as many people with you, people are there by the glass and they're there for 90 minutes and then they're giving up the table. You've got a lot of the senbero has really become omnipresent. It used to be just kind of a little cheap place thing, and now it's kind of a lot of places have a senbero option on the menu. And probably a lot of people out there, especially people who haven't been to Japan before, might not be aware of what senbero is. I'm going to put this in the comments. Senbero is the way that you would pronounce it. I just put it in the comments. And senbero is well, it's two words put together, as many of these words are. Sen means, as many people can guess, means 1,000 yen, and bero is from the slang expression bero, which means to be drunk. So 1,000 yen drunk. It's not particularly glamorous or sophisticated, but you'll see a lot of places with a senbero option, and that means it's a good deal. Usually 3 drinks. Now, this is my experience, so maybe I'm wrong. If there are other cases out there, then please, people can let me know in the comments. 3 drinks and usually a snack, like one dish, for 1,000 yen. It's a pretty good deal, and it's also a good place to keep people coming in and getting the turnover on the tables or whatever in a standing bar. They're not called tables. What are they called? They're called. What do you call them? How would you refer to their customers, I guess? But positions? Yeah. Position 1.
Yeah. Well, the one standing bar I know that does this here in Fukuoka, they started during the pandemic as well. So I think it's same idea, and they do have tables. There's tables that you stand at.
They're standing tables.
They do have the counters as well, but it's but they started doing the senbero, but of course none of the good stuff is on that menu, and I'm not there to get drunk. I'm there to try the good stuff, and the good drinks are 400 yen. So I'm going to spend 1,200 plus the appetizer for another 1,600 yen instead of 1,000, and I get good drinks. So anyway, that makes sense actually, the way that drinking styles have changed.
It is. I think it's much more of a pace and volume thing. Less volume, but more customers, I guess. So.
Yeah, I can only think of twice that during the pandemic where I've been out in an izakaya and ordered a bottle, and sat and let it run for the evening ran for as long as the bottle held out. And that was both times it was with several people. So it was one time in Miyazaki and one time in Kagoshima.
Sure. And that's another thing kind of directly connected to the bottle is the bottle keep. And Oshiro Shacho said the bottle keep programs are kind of diminishing because you might start your in bottle keep for the uninitiated. It's where you buy a bottle at the bar and then you leave it at the bar and they hold it for you if you're a regular customer, and they'll write your name on it, and sometimes I've been told by people, hey, you can go to this bar and drink from my bottle if you want, which is a really nice thing for people to do. And sometimes I will have like half a glass off of somebody's bottle, but because it's already paid for, I want to give them some other business too. So I end up ordering off the menu. But the bottle keep programs are kind of being they're getting smaller because number one, you might forget because people don't go out as much anymore, and number two, you don't know if the shop is going to be open within the next couple of months because there might be another lockdown. So the risk of having a bottle keep is a little higher. So people aren't doing it as much, meaning the volume of bottles of any particular brand. If you think about how some of these bars will be like, and you probably have this in Fukuoka, like there's some bars, even in Fukuoka, that might be a Kurokiri bar, and they just they get tons of those bottles. Some salesperson had a great connection there and established that account as a Kurokiri place. Who knows what they paid to get that placement. Sure. But probably the same thing happens with a lot of these bars in Okinawa. What's the Chuko brand that with the ship on it?
The Dream something.
Yeah. Well, and they've got a bunch of places with that brand. But now those places aren't ordering that kind of volume. They're not ordering by the case for their bottle keep program because they don't really do it anymore. Now they're like, well, Senbero. We need to have a variety of things in here. So so I can see it, and Oshiro sounds like, yeah, it's not great. It's not great at all. We're hurting. So that was, the writing's on the wall, and everybody's trying really hard, but people need to drink a lot more. Awamori is the end all and be all of that story.
Yeah. No, speaking of that, and it's always striking, I think, when you've got that kind of shop that's really specializes in one brand as their bottle keep brand. And they'll have several available. It'll be like a sweet potato, barley, and rice, right? You got all three available, but 90% of the customers who come in for bottle keep are getting one of those brands, and it's usually the sweet potato. And you'll come into a bar and every bottle on the shelf is a sweet potato shochu brand with kind of hand drawn art from the bottle owner to designate their bottle, and that's pretty striking. The other thing that I've seen sometimes here in Fukuoka is where they basically have like a wine rack, and so people decorate the butts of the bottle.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Right, so so it's usually brown glass, right? And so this is decorated with some sort of drawing or whatever, or the signature of the owner, and then you just have this wall of those bottles staring back at you, which is it's a pretty nice visual. But yeah, you're right. And the trouble is a lot of the places, they don't want to keep your bottle for very long, so it's a 3-month limit, right?
Yeah, max. Yeah.
And if you don't know when you're going to be back, then that's trouble. And I used to have bottle keep bottles all over New York City. I had bottles in probably a dozen izakayas at one point, and just whenever I went back, it'd be waiting for me. And it's a pretty cool system. Here in Fukuoka, I have one bottle in I think we've been to the Amami izakaya.
Yeah,
that's in the. It's actually an outdoor izakaya, which is kind of awesome, but not great in winter. But I watched the series-winning game for the Japan series there, and I had a bottle, and that's my keep bottle of Jogo. That's a Jogo bar, so all of the keep bottles are Jogo Kokuto Shochu. I really like that brand, so I'm happy that that's their standard. But you're right. There's some relationship between that distillery and that bar that drives that volume. And if the bottle keep goes away, then that volume goes away for sure.
Potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially if they're not going to be open reliably. So yeah, obviously this is affecting far wider swath of the alcohol industry, the beverage alcohol industry, than just Awamori makers. But yeah, and just young people aren't drinking this stuff, so I should define young. The 20-year-olds, 20-somethings are not drinking Awamori. They're drinking they're drinking shikuasa sours, and they're drinking highballs, and they're drinking. What else are they? And then after they've had a few, they drink a thing of habushu, right? And that's kind of seems like every group starts talking about a glass of habushu, but
Yeah, I mean that's basically the Jägermeister of Japan, right? That's the
pretty much. It's when you lose a bet. Yeah. So anyway, it was a good trip, and can't wait to go back. Already thinking about reservations for March.
Yeah,
But
well, let me know. I'd love to come down and join you for a little bit of that March
Yep.
trip, like I did last year, which was a great time.
It was. So let's see. Let's move this on to what's next. Where are you? Oh wait, it's probably up higher. Shochu Rakuen. We're finally reaching the end of the first little box, the
Yeah.
A set, and we're on to a Kokuto sugar shochu, and this is one of our favorites from Yamada.
It is.
So this is I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Yamada, some of you will know, and actually I've had two people reach out to me recently because they were listening to Japan Distilled, our podcast.
Okay.
And they listened to the Kokuto Sugar Shochu episode, and where we go through some of our favorites, and they're like, do you know where I can get that Ichiban Bashi? I was like, well, not yet, but maybe.
Might be something in the works.
Oh, okay. 30% ABV, Kokuto Sugar Shochu, as you would expect from Yamada.
Yeah, I mean this
A little light and
the AB
fruity.
ABV is a regional thing, really, when it comes to these drinks. I mean, Christopher talking about Okinawa, and now us having Kokuto Shochu, the standard ABVs in those areas, which are the islands south of Kyushu, is 30%. Most of the brands in Kyushu are 25, and then you've got the east coast of Kyushu, Miyazaki and Oita, where 20% is standard. So you get a little bit of variability that way. But that 24% stuff that you find in the States doesn't exist
Doesn't
here.
happen here. No.
No.
That's
We know exactly
those are
one
weird.
brand. There's exactly one brand that I'm aware of in Japan. It's bottled at 24%, and that'll be in a future Rakuen set. So we'll hold off for that. That's going to be a
Right.
fun story.
So this one, according to the Rakuen pairing book, it's advised that it's enjoyed sodawari.
I
Yep.
finally found
There
mine.
you go. You found it. You found one of them.
I cleaned my office and discovered the book. I should clean more often, I think. Oh, that looks good. What is that?
It's a Korean style kimbap or gimbap norimaki is the
That looks
pairing
delicious.
suggestion. It does look really good.
So you can get that, so people can get hungry. Looks pretty delicious.
Yeah, so gimbap, of course, is the type of rolled. What do they call them? California rolls? Is that what that is? Or California rolls with the rice on the outside?
I think. Well,
I mean, obviously that we're mixing traditions here, but it's a rolled rice, and with the laver, the dried seaweed on the outside, and then a number of things on the inside, vegetables, sometimes strips of meat or fish, and in the case of some styles of Korean gimbap, they'll have different vegetables that are cut into long strips, and then also occasionally some type of kimchi or fermented cabbage that will add a little bit of a kick. One of my favorite styles is with tuna in there as well, and this one looks like it has eggs, carrots, spinach, regular leafy greens, and then in addition, and then the outside is actually a rice paper, which is a different tradition entirely. That's more of a Southeast Asian style. and a number of this is the most ingredients and prep going into any of these pairings that we've seen so
It
far.
is. It's a long ingredient list.
It looks like a lot of work, but it also the result looks delicious.
I'm
So
excited to try it though.
yeah, let's give this a shot real quick. Now that it's been open
Oh,
for a few minutes.
I meant the food.
I'm sure if you make it, definitely photograph it, and I'll live
Will do.
vicariously through your taste buds.
At some point, before I finish all these little bottles, I'm gonna have to make some of these dishes.
Whoa, that's way deeper on the palate than it is on the nose. The nose is really quite fruity, and had almost. Oh, geez, wow,
Yeah,
that goes for a
that's
long
nice.
ways. And then on the palate, this is way deeper in terms of the dark sugar. It's and it's a little bit. Wow, that one's really true to the dark sugar. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it is. That's good. I'm really impressed with these Akuen sets. It's clear that the distilleries really put some thought into what to put in the bottle, and it wasn't just like offloading old stock. It really has been an effort to come up with a new expression from that still remains true to what they usually make, but with a little twist on it, which is pretty cool.
For me, it's kind of akin to the competition sake, the stuff that's brewed only for the competitions, and it doesn't actually really make it out into mass market circulation. And you get some weirdos in there. You get some really brash stuff and things with surprisingly complex and deep flavor profiles, and maybe that are a little too expensive to really bottle at your normal target, your shelf target prices, just because the ingredients are too expensive, or the amount of effort that went into it was too extreme to be able to replicate it on any scale at an affordable price point for the consumer. And this is another one of those that is just kind of a surprise, a little bit of a, well, that's what's expected on the nose, or it veers a little sweet, and then on the palate it's just like boom, and that this one is going to require a lot more thought. I'm glad I poured a pretty good glass of it.
Yeah, no, that's delicious. I learned a little bit about the Shochu competitions, how they do it, because with sake, you're right, they'll make a batch of competition sake, and they're putting, like, I've actually worked at Kitaya here in Fukuoka and helped them press their competition sake one year, and they don't put those into a standard tank. They put them into the ito, which are 10 isho being volume 18-liter glass demijohns basically, and they'll pour that off. Different parts of the press gets poured into different glass containers, and then they'll put it away in the cooler, and then they'll go back and they'll try them, and they'll choose the one of those demijohns that's got the best flavor and aroma as the one that they submit for the competition, right? So they can be very, very specific with sake in how they do that. With shochu, what tends to happen, because you don't necessarily want to save the hearts or the heads or specific part of the run, you want the entire run to be what is expressing, but they'll put the ones that they're making for competition into separate tanks, because normally you're making the same style over the season. And for example, at Yamato Zakura, he'll usually fill 2 or 3 of the 10,000 liter tanks over the course of a season, and it's just blending batch after batch after batch after batch.
Sure.
And that's still what he has to do, because he doesn't have like dedicated.
He doesn't have this space.
Tanks for competition, right? And so what he was actually lamenting to me, Tekan-san was lamenting to me, that he doesn't really have a chance usually at competition, because bigger distilleries can just set aside whatever tastes best that year and submit that, where he has to just submit one of his blends. But last year he received notice that he was a finalist in the competition for Kagoshima Prefecture, and got very, very excited, and then did not win. But he was, I think, very, very glad to just have been recognized, because these are blind competitions.
Yeah.
Right. And he normally feels at a distinct disadvantage against the big boys. But I guess when you make good stuff, it shines through. eventually.
Yeah, and I you know what, I have to say I'm glad that the spirits competitions worldwide, and this is true for most wine competitions too, they don't allow you to submit something that is not going to be on the market at some appreciable level. There are often minimum requirements for the volume being sold to market. Obviously, for single cask releases and of whiskeys and things of that nature, it can be very, very small quantities, but still, it has to be available to the consumer in order to be eligible for the competition. And I think that's kind of important.
Sure.
And of course, yeah, some of the bigger houses can sort of flaunt the rules a little bit, because actually, you know, the blend A is actually not a blend in this case. It just happened to be a really outstanding batch from this year for this mass market label that ended up just being left on its own. It goes into that those 2 or 3 or 5 competition bottles that were sent out, probably more than that,
Sure.
because they need first they need to have it evaluated by the panel, and then they need to make enough for the tables and everything. So it's probably a couple of cases, but yeah, they're
Sure.
definitely going to have an advantage there, and that's why maybe that's part of the reason why you do see a preponderance of the gigantic hands of the industry winning a lot of these awards early on. Is they're respecting the rule, the spirit of the rule, no pun intended, but they are still kind of taking some liberties because they can.
Sure.
Which, yeah, you can't blame them for that, I suppose.
Yeah, and those submissions aren't cheap either. So if you're entering competitions, you've got to really believe in your product, I think.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, this is a good one. Rakuen set A done. We're slow, but we'll get there.
Yeah, bottle 6 in set A, which was
We'll move on to set B in the new year.
pretty great.
Let's see. I'm gonna switch the thing here. Newly open. What you got? Anything
Yeah.
other than Rakuen?
What did I show you last time?
I don't remember.
So I feel like
I
I've
don't even
been
remember
holding
what
a
I
bottle.
showed last time. Damn
I
it.
think I had. There's a bottle that I had intended not to finish because I wanted to show it on here. But I feel like I might have done it last week. Did I show you this last time?
Yes, that's what it was.
Yep.
That's exactly.
That's what
it was.
Okay, so that was last time. All right, so I got to find something else I've opened recently. Oh, well, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, no.
Oh yeah, cool. This is interesting.
I opened this. This is a Kokuto Shochu from actually a defunct distillery. Pretty gorgeous ceramic packaging. Unfortunately, the cork was completely dried out. I'll take the topper off of here. The cork is gone. You can actually probably see a little bit of the cork residue. It completely dried and adhered to the sides of the ceramic.
Oops.
So I had to get that cork out of there with. Ended up using a fork and little tiny
Lovely.
like
Dessert
but anyway
fork.
So then I had to strain the cork bits out of the liquid, and as you know, when a cork dries out like that, often the alcohol follows. It tends to evaporate relatively quickly, but much to my relief, there actually was some survivable liquid, which I now have in another bottle. And I tried it, and it's got a lot of the character of a long-aged Awamori.
Okay.
But as a Kokuto Shochu, so it's got, then it had, and I think probably from the oxidization that happened because of the cork, it ended up having almost a brininess to it, you know. But it still had alcohol in it. I had a little Chuko carafe, like 100 ml carafe, like ceramic, that the alcohol was completely gone. It was Awamori flavored water.
Nice.
In that, which I did not finish, but this one actually still has some alcohol. I don't know. It was originally 30%. It was bottled at 30%, as we mentioned. That's the standard in
Umami.
Yeah, so this is called Seto no Nada. is the brand. And do you remember the name of the distillery? I think I've got it in my notes.
See, I thought it was Nishihira, but
It's from Tenkai no Kura.
oh, that's right. You're right.
Yep.
That's
And I
right.
guess they've now closed their doors. So I like this ceramic, but so that was my newly opened. It was obviously not something you can find easily anymore. There are probably a few bottles lingering in market, but let my experience be a warning.
Yeah, I think I actually have a couple of those bottles somewhere.
You may want to open them if you haven't already, just to see if the cork's all right. Because this one was definitely dried out, and that's something I've learned is Amami obviously is a pretty hot, humid environment like Okinawa, and so I think you're taking a little bit more risk by buying old stock from
Yeah,
that's been
probably
stored
right.
down there. Hmm.
Well, you just have to check the reputation of the seller, really, if you're going to
Sure.
be buying them like off market, and ask questions like, "What's the seal like?" or "And how have you been storing it?"
Hmm.
Most places wouldn't think, especially the shape of that bottle, storing it
Hmm.
on its side is going to be a little bit tricky, just
Yep.
because it's so roly poly.
Hmm.
And then probably over time, unless it was stored very, very carefully, it would have all leaked out of there.
Hmm. Hmm.
A lot of the
Yeah.
liquid would have gone straight through the cork, so it would have to be at the precise angle. And
Sure.
very few collectors are going to have done that reliably. Um, but yeah, you're probably right. I should double check on my stash and see how that's going. Um, I bet
How
I
about you?
had this same fate. I had opened this a couple of days ago again. It's actually not newly opened. It was opened ages ago, and then revisited it. It's Naka Naka, which is a Kuroki Honten beauty, and something that a lot of folks in the States anyway are going to have access to. I imagine in parts of Europe as well.
Hmm.
And it's always a delight.
Yep.
It's just when you go back to it, you're like, it's an old friend.
Hmm.
So Kuroki Honten, Miyazaki
Yeah.
Prefecture,
Yeah. I always
delightful.
feel like I've stepped into a quality izakaya when they've got something from Kuroki on the menu.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
It's
you've sort of
discerning.
you've gone a step beyond. I think the first level of that, like beyond the mass market brands, the first step up might be like something from Nishi Shuzo, Tomino Hozan or Kicho Hozan or something. That's sort of a little bit of a step up. Then I feel like another step up is when you get something from Kuroki. So yeah, I'm
That's
always happy
that's
to see
an
Naka Naka on the menu.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. There are echelons. There are groups and bands of what you can kind of. It's judging a book by its cover, absolutely, but
Hmm.
or judging an izakaya by its shochu selection
Yeah.
is going to be unfair on certain levels, but on other levels, it also is. It's an indication of intent. It's an
Hmm.
indication of attention to detail. And if you happen to be able to purchase for resale the types of makers that the otaku crowd, the otaku set like us is going to appreciate, then that means that and it's not always easy to get these things. You're not always going to have the blessing. This is
Hmm.
going to take some work. You might have to go visit the distilleries. In several cases, you will have to. You have to go
Hmm.
and visit and pay your respects, and then they might sell it to you. And so, when if you go to a place that has Yamato Zakura, for example, right? You think,
Hmm.
oh, geez, this is interesting. This guy must, if he cares that much about the shochu, there's a chance he cares that much about a bunch of other things in this four-walled space, and I have a feeling I may be coming back here. So it is. It's a metric. It's a very valuable
Hmm.
metric. I feel for shochu particularly and awamori.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I was pleased last night with the shochu bar that I mentioned earlier, Hitsujiga, that when I walked in, there's several Yamato Zakura brands lined up on the bar. But then I realized it's because he had been told I was coming. So those aren't normally there.
Oh, geez, him. Okay,
But at
best
least he
foot
had them.
forward. Yeah,
Yeah, he had them.
right.
So yeah, cool. That's a good
Good
one.
God. Nice. All right. Well, happy New Year to everybody, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess maybe next week we can review it. Maybe it can be things from last year and things to come
Hmm.
type of episode, and we can brainstorm a little bit about how 2022 is going to be better than the 2 years previous.
Yes, let's
Ugh.
let's certainly hope for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely Happy New Year to everybody out there. I hope you are enjoying your holidays and can get some rest as well. And yeah, we'll see you in the new year.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 83. That's a wrap. And stay happy, healthy, keep smiling to all of you out there, all around the world, from both of us here in Japan. A very, very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kampai.